So in 1961, a biochemist named Christian Anfinsen made a bet. He proposed that a protein's three-dimensional shape was fully determined by its amino acid sequence, that biology, in other words, had already encoded the answer to the structure question inside the molecule itself. Nobody could verify it. The math required to computationally solve protein folding was beyond anything the field could attempt. For 60 years, thousands of researchers tried and failed to crack the problem. It was listed as one of the great unsolved challenges in science. And then in 2020, a team at Google DeepMind solved it. The model they built was AlphaFold. The person who led that team was a 35-year-old computational chemist named John Jumper. And on June 19, 2026, Jumper announced he was leaving Google DeepMind to join Anthropic. He is the first Nobel laureate to change employers mid-career in the AI industry. The move is the most consequential talent departure of 2026, and it tells you something important about where the next phase of the AI race is actually heading. Start with what AlphaFold actually did. Before 2020, determining a single protein structure experimentally could take a PhD student 3 to 5 years. AlphaFold does it in seconds, with accuracy comparable to the best experimental methods. The database it produced contains more than 214 million protein structures, covering essentially every known protein in the scientific literature. Drug discovery, which previously required years of structural biology work before a research team could even identify a candidate molecule, has been fundamentally transformed, a process that once took a decade now routinely takes months. Jumper and DeepMind CEO Demis Hassabis shared one half of the 2024 Nobel Prize in Chemistry for it. The other half went to David Baker for related computational protein design work. The Nobel Committee, which does not typically rush, gave it to them 4 years after the result. That is how confident the scientific community was that AlphaFold would stand the test of time. Now take the person who built that, and imagine what they could do with Anthropic's model infrastructure, its agentic frameworks, its access to frontier compute, and its stated mission of using AI to compress 50 to 100 years of scientific progress into the next decade. That last phrase is not a marketing line. It came from Dario Amadei's October 2024 essay, Machines of Loving Grace, which laid out Anthropic's thesis for AI-enabled science in explicit terms, that the pace of biological discovery could be radically accelerated if AI systems could design experiments, reason across the existing literature, and iterate at a speed no human team could match. That thesis was written before AlphaFold's Nobel, before Anthropic's wet labs, before the Allen Institute and HHMI partnerships. Jumper is, by any reasonable measure, the person who has most concretely demonstrated that this kind of acceleration is possible. AlphaFold collapsed 60 years of expected scientific progress into a few years of model development. Amodi's essay was, in part, a bet that AlphaFold was not an anomaly. Jumper's arrival is Anthropic acting on that bet. The timing matters. Jumper's announcement came one day after Noam Shazir, Google's VP of Engineering, co-lead of the Gemini model, and co-author of the 2017 Attention is All You Need Transformer paper, announced he was leaving DeepMind for OpenAI. Two of the most important researchers at arguably the most prestigious AI research institution in the world left in 48 hours. Jumper went to Anthropic. Shazir went to OpenAI. Between them, those two researchers helped build the foundation that the entire modern AI industry runs on. Google's response, publicly, was gracious. Demis Hassabis posted on X praising Jumper's work and calling AlphaFold a result that changed the world. What Hassabis did not post was what this week means for DeepMind's position in the talent market. After 2024 and 2025 saw Google's models at or near the frontier, 2026 has increasingly felt like a year where the gap is reopening. The missed Gemini 3.5 Pro GA deadline, the talent losses, the 4 researchers who left for Anthropic in a single week in late June, all of it points toward an organization under real internal pressure that no amount of gracious X posts can fully obscure. Jumper's hire did not happen in isolation. Over the prior 8 months, Anthropic had been systematically building the infrastructure for AI for science work in a way that most of the industry press missed entirely because each piece was reported as a separate story. In February 2026, Anthropic announced flagship research partnerships with the Allen Institute for Brain Science and the Howard Hughes Medical Institute's Genelia Research Campus. Those partnerships deploy Claude-based AI agents directly into scientific data analysis pipelines, targeting the months-long bottlenecks in single-cell genomics, connectomics, and imaging workflows. In April 2026, Anthropic reportedly acquired Coefficient Bio, a stealth biotech startup focused on using AI to design novel protein therapeutics. The acquisition was not announced publicly. It surfaced through regulatory filings and reporting. In May, the company hired a senior pre-training researcher whose background spans large-scale model development and biology. And in late June, Anthropic held a live-streamed AI for Science event that framed its scientific ambitions publicly for the first time, with participation from academic research partners who had been working with Claude for months. Jumper's announcement came 9 days before that event. Lined up by date, these moves look less like opportunistic hiring and more like a deliberate multi-step strategy that was already in motion before anyone outside the company knew it existed. The question worth asking is what Jumper actually brings that Anthropic's existing team could not provide. The benchmarks part is not it. AlphaFold's database is public and goes nowhere with Jumper. Neither does the Nobel itself. Awards do not transfer with their recipients. What moves is something harder to quantify. Scientific judgment at a level that comes only from having led a project that solved a 60-year-old open problem. The ability to evaluate which biological research questions are genuinely tractable with current AI versus which ones will resist the approach for another decade. And the credibility, with pharmaceutical R&D teams and academic research institutions, that a Nobel Prize grants in a way that no benchmark score can replicate. Enterprise DNA's analyst note on the hire made this precise. The audience Anthropic most needs to convince, the biology departments and drug discovery teams who control the largest potential AI research budgets, are people who evaluate scientific credibility the way software engineers evaluate SWE bench scores. Jumper is Anthropic's score in that system. DeepMind's edge in the AI industry has always been science. It was the argument for why Google, despite losing the consumer AI race to OpenAI and the enterprise AI race increasingly to Anthropic, remained essential. AlphaFold was the proof. AlphaFold 3, which extended the system to predict molecular interactions between proteins and other biological molecules, reinforced it. The case for DeepMind's continued relevance rested substantially on the argument that no other lab had built anything comparable in scientific AI, and that the talent required to do so was concentrated inside DeepMind. That argument just got harder to make, not because AlphaFold went anywhere, but because the person who built it is now working on whatever Anthropic asks him to build next. Google retains the infrastructure, the database, and the papers. What it no longer retains is the scientist whose judgment, reputation, and research instincts produce those assets. In biology, as in AI, those are often worth more than the outputs themselves. Jumper's ex-post was brief. He thanked Demis Hassabis for taking a chance on him 6 months after his PhD, called DeepMind a special place, and said he planned to take some time to recharge before starting. He did not say what his role would be. Anthropic has not said either. The silence is its own kind of signal. When companies hire someone at the level of a Nobel laureate, the absence of a job title usually means the role is being built around the person, not the other way around. Whatever it turns out to be, the hire signals that Anthropic's next chapter is not primarily about making Claude better at writing code or drafting emails. It is about whether an AI system can reason about physical reality the way AlphaFold learned to reason about protein structure, by compressing a problem that humans could not solve into a form that a model could. That is a different kind of ambition than anything the consumer AI market is currently pricing in. And it is the one John Jumper, who could have gone anywhere, just chose to work on. Thanks for watching. This is AI Tides, and I'll see you in the next one.